Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Kentucky Harm Reduction and Recovery Community of Practice webinar series presented by Voices of Hope and the University of Kentucky Perinatal Research and Wellness Center. My name is Brooke West. I am a person in recovery, and I am the training coordinator at Voices of Hope. I almost said the University of Kentucky, that's silly. The goal of a community of practice is to bring together a group to engage in training, share best practices, and network around a common interest. Last month, we learned from representatives of Kentucky Recovery Community Centers about the successes and challenges they have experienced implementing harm reduction services. Today, the topic of our community of practice is de-escalation skills, tailored specifically for recovery and harm reduction settings. We have received multiple requests to address this important topic, so we are excited to welcome our guest speaker today, Sal Corbin. Sal is the Maryland Harm Reduction Training Institute coordinator, worked for 15 years in academia as a psychology professor before transitioning to nonprofit work. He has done workforce development training and program management and is now a training coordinator for the Maryland Harm Reduction Institute. His vision is to help others build and maintain healthy relationships with conflict transformation as the primary focus. His extensive background in leadership facilitation supports his efforts to keep showing up and sharing. He holds a master's degree in clinical psychology and a PhD in educational psychology. Before I hand it over to Sal, we've got two housekeeping notes. If you are a peer support specialist and you would like to receive continuing education credit for this webinar, we will place a link to a survey in the chat toward the end of this session. And we've set up a new process. So as soon as you complete the survey, you should automatically receive an email with your certificate. And the survey will remain open for 2 weeks. And also for today's session, we have enabled the chat feature to allow for participation. So Sal will be asking some questions during his presentation. And because we have over 200 people registered for the webinar today, we ask that you reply one time per question to keep the discussion focused and increase the opportunity for responses to be seen and heard. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Sal.
Thank you, Brooke. Really appreciate that. First of all, can everybody hear me okay? Can you hear me okay, Brooke? Brooke's the only one I can see. Okay, good. Okay, so while this is going to be a formal presentation, I like to keep things informal. And what do I mean by that? I'd rather this be a conversation. Now, let me just set up some realistic expectations. In 90 minutes, we are not going to be able to cover every possible scenario that you could experience in terms of what people bring to you. The world is complicated. We are complicated as human beings. In fact, being human is flawed, which means we are imperfect and we're not going to get everything right. But I hope to offer are some tools and possibly a new perspective on how we embrace folks that come to us often tense, conflicted, frustrated, even angry, and how we can deal with that, particularly from the mental health lens. As you all already know, itself is extremely varied. You could spend years talking about the number of different disorders and symptoms that could show up. So we're gonna, it's gonna be an overview, but hopefully by the end of our time together, you'll have a greater understanding of how to approach folks. Now, I know you all already know the principles of harm reduction. So I'm gonna offer you two principles before I throw up my PowerPoint. The first is, and this is stuff I know you've heard, harm reduction proposes that we are to meet the person where they are, and this is sometimes not said, and don't leave them behind, right? So it's not just meeting them where it's at, it's don't leave them behind, which means, folks, you are engaged in a walk with the person, not with, which means you got to hear their story. You got to understand their history. You got to understand the factors that have contributed them to showing up in this particular here and now moment while they might be out of sorts, frazzled, a hot mess, whatever, okay? Now, the other thing in terms of sensitivity to that is when you are looking at somebody, and I'm saying that loosely, hot mess, but when you're seeing somebody and they're in a moment, just remember, we also have had moments, and when we are having our moments, we probably don't look very different from them. So part of that connection, you hear people say all the time, see humanity in others. I'm not going to spend a lot of time with that today, but what that means is be able to see yourself in them, right? Imagine yourself in their position. Then how would you want people to respond to you? The second thing is something we say in mental health, and that is notice the person first and the symptom second. Notice the person first and the symptom second. We live in a culture, right, in a society that does the exact opposite. They notice the symptoms first and the person second. But if I assume most, if not all, people in the room are here because they have compassion, because they have understanding, and they want to help. They want to support. So your capacity to do that is dependent on looking at this person as another human being who is flawed like we are, and in that particular moment needs your support. Okay, that was my little sermon for today. Let me get into the content. Also understand you don't need to take notes on the slides. I'll probably be moving through them too quickly, but I'll make sure that I provide the slides or the information from the slides to Brooke or Jeremy for your use. The other thing is, if you have any questions or comments at any time, please feel free to load up the chat. If it is conversation worthy for this space and time, they will let me know, and we'll try to engage that as much as possible. Okay, having said that, let me see if I can share my screen, and I need Brooke to give me a thumbs up that you can see it. Okay, because I can no longer see you. Okay. Okay, there you go. So this is a 90-minute section on de-escalation. And we're going to try and visit some different scenarios that will really invite your input. When I invite you into this space, remember that there are no really right or wrong answers. There are better answers, but not right or wrong. So don't feel bashful or shy. I hope this space is safe and that you won't be redirected or punished, right? That it's secure, that we're not going to share what it's said in session outside, and that it's a brave space for you to speak into. Also know that Brooke and Jeremy will have my contact information if you want to continue the conversation beyond this session. Okay, I'm going to bypass a lot of the protocols of a typical presentation because I really think our most valuable time spent together is actually in practice. Folks, we can talk about this stuff all day long in a safe space, and it's nice and it's neat and it's orderly and it always has a wonderful outcome. You all know that reality is not like that. The real work comes after we leave this space, when we have to go back and deal with the folks in our lives that have caused, or that's us, conflict, right? Tension, differences between us. It's not going to be in here. We'll visit some artificial scenarios, but when you got to go home tonight, or when you have to go back to your office, or when that particular client walks in the door, that's where the real work comes. And it takes practice over time. You don't get good at this stuff overnight. You're not going to be a master of de-escalation leaving this time and space. And I do this for a living, and I'm telling you now, I still get roped into it. The moment you think you have seen it all and there's nothing that somebody could do to rowdy you, guess what? That person all of a sudden walks through the door and offers you something new. I did a conflict management workshop last year, and kid you not, that afternoon got into it with my neighbor. In fact, if you'd have been in that workshop and seen me get into my neighbor, you'd been like, what the hell is he talking about, right? Like, he was just teaching us this stuff. So yeah, I'm no more immune to it than you are. I'm a little more seasoned with practice, but doesn't mean that people can't get under my skin either. And the reason for that is because we all have what are called triggers. Triggers basically nullify almost everything we're getting ready to talk about. All the content, right? All the orderly things, all of the smarter things. When you are triggered, and different people know how to trigger us, all these rules go right out the window, and then our emotions consume us, and we operate from that filter. And that, as you well know, can be very damaging. So you got, before I get in, know your triggers, y'all. Know what sets you off. Know the places that people can go where you lose it. Okay, now having said that, let me just say, and this is important, I'm not making a statement on anti-racism or racial equity or any of the isms. I want us to understand that we will interpret events differently depending on who we are. We have our own lenses that we look through that are based on the color of our skin, based on our gender identity, our height and weight, our political affiliation, our religious choices, our education, how we've been traumatized. All those things are lenses through which we interpret the severity of an event. Not only our interpretation, but how others receive us in our intervention, right? They got their own lenses too. So it is a dynamic play. It's a conversation that you got to kind of be sensitive to. Whenever I intervene with whatever I think might help the situation, I am constantly in assessment. I don't sit there and do something, say something, and be like, oh, that's done. No. I'm looking to see how it affects the person. Because sometimes my peaceful interventions actually create more conflict. They escalate the person. And I got to be aware of that to understand if I need to step forward, step back. And folks, yes, stepping back is an appropriate intervention depending on the situation. Okay? All right. Now, what are the goals of de-escalation? Well, one, we want to rehumanize the parties involved. As escalation occurs, we tend to see each other less and less as human beings, which is why we have name calling. So we come out with some derogatory labels. Why the volume goes up because we're trying to overspeak the person, which means we don't need to hear or want to be louder than what they're saying, right? So rehumanizing is kind of reminding, hey, we're all trying to get something here, and we probably all want the same thing, just different ways of getting it. To diffuse the situation means we want to shift the energy. So I don't want to cure you of outbursts or acting out of your symptoms or anything like that. In the moment, my job is how can I bring you back down, right? How can I get you to a more calm space? Because clearly you're going there as I have gone there, right? So how do we shift that energy? I'm going to offer you some tools on how to do that. And the scenarios we're going to visit today largely focused on mental health situations. So when people are acting out of their symptoms. And then third, creating the space for potential conflict transformation. That's just a fancy way of saying, can we create a different space for engagement, conversation, and minimizing that this will occur again in the future? All right, so I'm going to go right into some tactics. Remember, I'm speaking very quickly today because of our limited time, and I want there to be interaction. I'm going to fly through these like you can memorize them just by my saying them, but it's okay. Again, you can have this information later. But these are just ideas that you can use when you're attempting to de-escalate yourself. The first one being the most important. Center yourself, folks. It's just a word that says get yourself right before you're righting others. If you're not in a space to intervene or de-escalate somebody else or try to right the world, then don't do it. That's not the day for you to intervene. Call your colleague, get your supervisor, step out and say, you know what, you need to talk to somebody else. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. On the weekends, I do peace work, and that's one of the things I say is find your best, calm, peace self before you do this work, right? Center yourself, get yourself right. And any intervention protocol always says that. Make sure you're in a good space to do it. Presence and eye contact. Well, sometimes just by being present to the person and them knowing that you are actually listening to them will bring them down. Why? Because when we are having moments, the one thing we want as human beings more than anything else on the planet is to be heard, is to not be ignored. And when you're having a moment, you're definitely telling the world, hey, I need people to hear me, which is why we start to shout, we break out our bullhorns, we create a scene. So, but presence alone, letting a person know that they are heard is actually an intervention. It's not the only intervention, and it certainly doesn't stop there. Dialogue and empathy. I'll be real clear with this. In any situation that I enter into, the first things that I'm saying is I hear you or I got you. Before I go into anything else, I hear, hey, I get it. It's cool. I'll be upset too, right? So what I'm doing is acknowledging the space that they are in. I'm not agreeing with them. I'm saying, hey, I get it. I'd be upset if I was in your shoes. That statement alone lets people know that they are being heard, okay? Distraction and humor. Well, If you can open the door to get them to think about something else than their moment and why they're upset, that will bring somebody down. And this is where you can be real creative. Forget the humor thing. The humor only works if you happen to know somebody. So if you're actually doing, let's say, case management or working with somebody over an extended period of time, and you know them and their stories, and you have rapport, then you can drop a joke and say, like, this is so funny. This is exactly what we were talking about last week, or whatever. But do not use humor if you don't know the person. You'll only escalate them. But yeah, distract them. Wow, I that's a really beautiful shirt you have on. Where'd you get that? Or you know what? My phone's not working. Do you have? You know what time it is? I just need to know. Where's this? This Lexington, Kentucky. I'm familiar with other parts, but I don't know where that. Just tell me where that is. I'm just making stuff up right now. All of that can be distracting. Delegating is when you invite somebody else into it. Let's say you can't handle it, or maybe you need gender similarity. Let's say if I'm intervening with a woman, I might want a woman to help me do that. I might bring in my supervisor. I might bring in Brooke, who handles this particular type of client better than I do. Delegating is inviting others to help you out. Any kind of other credible messenger in the area. Distancing is when, this is a wonderful intervention. Change the environment. If the person is in your office making a big fuss, ask them to take a walk with you, right? Hey, let's go outside and get some air. Hey, I was walking down to the kitchen to get some water. You want to get some water with me? Change the environment. Sometimes that actually changes circumstances. Asking questions, well, that's if you have opened the door for conversation. So my first thing in intervening is trying to reach them and then start a conversation that is different than the outburst that they're having, right? Interconnectedness and solidarity. Just be straight. I never use this tactic, but some people are good at it. It's when you use we and let's. Hey, let's try something different. We can find out a better way to resolve this. If we just put our minds together, I'm sure we can come up with something. An interposition is when you're using your body as an intervention. So let's say the person is let's say it's a fight that's getting ready to unfold, or the person's in attack mode. They're going after somebody. I might step in between them and just be a human shield. Now, you might say to yourself, well, aren't there risks in all of that? Absolutely. Anytime you're intervening, it's a risk. I hope you didn't join this line of work thinking that we're going to be risks, because you're dealing with human beings. So there's risk all the time. Okay, let me pause there for a minute. Were there any questions before I jump into other stuff? Okay, I'm gonna keep moving. All right, now I want to keep this brief. I actually took these pictures in the wild, so I want you to understand the sacrifice that I've gone to for you people. Okay, these are typical conflict responses. I actually have an assessment that I can share with Brooke and Jeremy if you actually want to take a test to find out which of these you most often rely on, and then what's your backup. But these are, and look, there are other responses, but this is just kind of a basic way. I use animals not to insult your intelligence. I use them because they're easier to remember than the actual technical terms, right? It's easier to remember shark than dominate, right? And you probably may or may not use dominating in your normal everyday language, right? So you might not say, you might refer to somebody saying, well, they're really, really dominating. You might just say, they're a lion or they're a shark or something like that. So first of all, there's no right or wrong to these responses. They all have their time and space. Dominating is when you make the executive decision. This is the way it's going to be, and let's keep moving. Now, wonderful for short-term results, not for long-term resolution, right? And a lot of times you can hurt feelings by doing it. But there are times to be a shark, especially if you're in a leadership role. There are times you got to make the decision. Look, if I'm having a heart attack, I want a whole bunch of sharks around me talking about let's help them. I don't want a lot of people standing around saying, well, what do you think? What are you thinking? I'm not sure. As long as we give them space. No, jump in there, sharks, and resuscitate it. Teddy bear is the exact opposite. So you give in. So this is a wonderful technique, and I really want this to sink in with you. When the battle is really not worth the fight, like there's a lot of stuff in our lives that really isn't worth the fight, but we get sucked into. I'll give you a personal example: road rage. I used to be, oh man, I was a road rager for the longest time. I'm talking about people cutting you off, you cutting them off, exchanging finger gestures, all kinds of stuff, right? And I don't know. One day maybe I just got old, but just I was like, you know what, this is crazy. I'm getting into it, people on the road that I will never see again for the rest of my life. For what? To say I had the last word? For what? Yeah. Look, I mean, all of us have made errors on the road, right? And people have made errors on us. So I just gave that fight up. It just wasn't worth fighting. But somebody's really trying to get over in my lane, yeah, come on. That's called obliging, right? Giving in. Again, really wonderful de-escalation because the other side gets what they want and need. Not good for you in terms of long-term resolution that you're not necessarily sharing your voice. So that becomes important if you're like a yes person all the time. You're always giving in is not good because then you have no voice. Okay. The turtle, wonderful for de-escalating withdrawal. If I have a conversation with you and it starts to get escalated or we start to really get into our sides or our opinions, I'll just back up and say, you know what, hey, I didn't want this to be a tense conversation. Can we start over? Kind of thing. The withdrawal is a wonderful technique. Withdrawal isn't giving in. It's saying, hey, let's all just step back for a minute. The fox is the compromiser. It's called a fox because most of the world navigates this way, meaning it's a negotiation. You give up something, you get something kind of thing. That's the world we live in. That's democracy. That's political committees. That's bureaucracy. That's group work. I mean, there's always something you got to give up and something you got to, and something you gain. The wolf, although some people are thrown off by that because they see wolves as predators, the wolf pack, one of the most collaborative systems you will ever see. They all have identifiable and equally valued roles, and the pups are immediately adopted by the rest of the pack, even if the alpha or female, alpha male or alpha female are killed off. The rest of the pack immediately adopts them. There are no orphans in the wolf world. So collaborating is win-win for everybody. Win-win is what we like to shoot for. Easily said, not easily obtained. It's hard for you to leave situations everybody's win. Okay. Now, just pause there. Anything I need to address? I know I'm talking a lot, but I'm trying to get to the good stuff. Okay. All right. So there's two questions that really simplify this process. I understand that de-escalating and intervening and dealing with people is complicated, but I'm going to simplify it, if I could, in two questions. One, what's going on with them? And more importantly, what's going on with you, right? And this is important because, so I do workshops on relationships all the time and forgiveness and all these things, and a lot of times I'll ask, and you don't have to answer in here, but how many of you have ever been hurt in a relationship? How many of you have ever been hurt or damaged? Everybody's hand just shoots up and they know exactly who or whom those persons are, right? And, and they're ready to talk about it, and then I'll say, yeah, how many of those same people that raised their hand have hurt somebody? And it's interesting, there's a pause, it's a little more quiet, the hands don't skyrocket into the air, it's more kind of like a half hand, yeah. And the only point I'm trying to make here is that the human response has both sides, and probably both sides that we have been on the receiving end of, right, or giving end of. And so when you're dealing with somebody that, let's say, is in crisis, just remember that, understand that they're in a moment and they need your support. So what's the best way to optimize that with this person? And it's not always ideal, right? But what can you do, not as opposed to what can't you do? What can you do to support that situation? My favorite question to ask anybody all the time in this line of work, and even with my family, my daughter, how can I show up to support you better? Different or better? How can I show up to support you different or better? Right? Which invites them into the conversation so they can express their need and I can match that. Too many of us assume the need and operate from that perspective. Folks, don't assume the need if you don't know, if you haven't asked. I used to work with the unhoused, and people used to always say, well, how do you talk to them? And I tell them I talk to them the same way I talk to anybody else. Hey, How you doing? What's going on with you today? Like, I don't need to go in there and assume they need change or a sandwich or clothing or a roof over their head. Like, I don't even know if they're hungry, but I've heard people say, well, I'm not going to give them money, but I'll buy them a sandwich. I'm like, well, were they hungry? Do they even like sandwiches? Ask them. Like, and you don't even have to ask. Just have a normal conversation. They'll let you know what's going on with them. Right. But anyways, just food for thought before I get into so what's going on with them? Well, we know that there are just too many reasons why somebody might show up difficult, right? Too many reasons. Because and any of the reasons that you apply to them, you can also apply to you. When I'm having a bad day, my conversations are short, my words are abrupt, I'm very direct, and I'm very impatient. So that's not the day to be social with Saul. It just isn't. Right now, and I expect the world to respect that, even though I might not have said anything. And that's how self-centered that is. But think about that. When people are in their moments, they're coming with their agenda. They're not into people skills and we are the world and so let's sing kumbaya. That means if somebody comes to you in a particular space, you got to be willing to listen to their story. No matter how they're coming at you, you got to be willing to hear it. Like if you really want to help, you can't shut them down because you're trying to be in control and then say, what do you need? Right? That's going to just further irritate them. So you got to understand by listening. And for those of you who think that you're good listeners, so do I. And it's the one technique that we all think we're good at that we're really not. And the reason I know that is because when I put people in active listening spaces, it is torturous. What you have to go through to actually actively listen. Hearing is not listening, y'all. We're not going to do that today, but I just want to and I'm including myself in that. I'm a terrible listener. Now, I'm great professionally because I know what I'm supposed to do. But I step outside that professional arena, man, I go right back to my bad habits, which is like interrupting folks and cutting. Oh, man, it's terrible. So anyways, empathize, right? Validate where they are. That's my I hear you, I got you. Yours doesn't have to sound like that. It could sound like whatever. You want to make sure it's your language, right? You want to make sure it sounds right coming from you. I might say, I hear you, I got you, or it's cool. If that's not your language, you're just going to make yourself look shallow and superficial, silly even, right? What words are comfortable for you to reach the person where they get that they're being heard? Now, these last two, remaining objective and don't take personal, I'm going to tell you I fail at them just as much as you do. Now, I'm a trained mediator, so I can be objective in that professional setting. But don't take it personal, boy. I just told you I got into it with my neighbor after doing a conflict management workshop. I take things personal. If you know how to trigger me, it's over. It's on. It's on like Donkey Kong. Am I dating myself by saying that? I think I just dated myself. Okay. All right. Okay. So don't take it personal. Chances are, professionally, most likely, the person that is frustrated and making a scene or angry or whatever, it has nothing to do with you. You might be the organizational or the agency rep, but they're probably operating from their history of being mistreated, or maybe there's mistrust or whatever. But it's probably not about you. And then if it is about you, have enough humility to listen to that and then respond to this. Okay. Pausing, anything? We doing okay? All right. So what about you? What's going on with you? Brooke, were you going to say something or are we okay?
I was just going to encourage people to put their questions in the chat as they come
up. So what can you do? Well, first of all, know your role, right? We're going to be talking about mental health situations today, most of them. Do the self-check. If you're not a clinician, don't respond as one, even if you're trained to be one. Look, I'm a trained clinician, but that doesn't mean I'm your clinician if you're having a moment. That's not my role. So be careful about how you respond because you could do more damage than good, right? So now if that is your role, go for it. But that also means you probably know the person really well that's sitting in front of you. Know your local crisis numbers. Every larger city has them. There are national numbers as well. And remember that if you're really trying to engage somebody from a mental health perspective, that you can't engage them unless you've had conversations with them that they trust, right? People aren't just going to open up to you as a stranger. In fact, if you come up to me on the street and you start telling me what you think I need, even if it's good news, like Saul, here's what you need to be the most successful, richest guy and happy forever. The first question I'm gonna ask you is, who are you? Like, I don't know you. Like, what are you talking about? Like, who are you? How did you come across that information, which are relationship questions? Okay. And lastly, if you are in a situation where you can help somebody that's in crisis, ask them, enroll them in their own recovery. Has this happened before? What's worked for you in the past? And how can I support you? Now, folks, if a person's acting out of their mental health symptoms, they may not be able to have a coherent conversation with you. We're going to visit some different examples of that. And that requires a different approach, because now it's no longer a rational exchange. You're either trying to de-escalate them so that they can, or you're trying to reach them in their mental health state. And that can be difficult. But, let's say if somebody's schizophrenic, which means they're altering in a different reality. If somebody's drunk or high, they're altering in a different reality. I mean, so those are conversations that need to be more sensitive in terms of interventions. Okay. What can you do? Well, we talked about the value of listening, right? If somebody's really upset, I usually let them vent. Let them get it out. Most of us, when we have gotten it out fully, like we've done all our screaming and shouting or whatever, we come down, right? And very rarely somebody just keeps shouting forever. We know there's those that are capable out there, but generally speaking, people come down. And then I reflect it. So it sounds like you're just having a really rough day because you tried to reach your case manager and they weren't here or something. Reflect it so that they feel like they are heard. Ask deeper questions for clarity, right? Some of those questions that we talked about before. Enroll them in their own recovery. Offer solutions. Well, hey, if you come over here and talk to Brooke, I think Brooke can give you a referral that'll really help you with that. Made that up. And then take accountability. Don't leave them hanging. If you're going to intervene and your goal is to bring them back down so that they can be supported, follow up. Make sure that they got the support that they needed. Otherwise, you become another experience of their mistrust, right? Yeah, well, the guy was nice, but then nothing happened. Nothing changed. Same old crap, right? So you don't want to be that person. So follow up with either the direct person of contact is or yourself. And then thank them. Whenever I'm in exchange with somebody, no matter if we are on opposite sides of the border, it doesn't matter. You're red and I'm blue. I'm black and white. You're pro and I'm pro-choice and I'm pro-life. What doesn't matter? Like, thank you for the exchange. Thank you for sharing this space for. Because now I have a deeper understanding of where you're coming. Okay, all right. Now I'm definitely going to pause there because now we're going to get into the mental health categories, and I do mean categories because there are literally hundreds of different disorders that we cannot cover today. And I just want to make sure I haven't, leave no child behind. So I want to check in. And I can actually, were there any questions in the chat or?
No, we're good.
Okay, all right. Looks like everybody, okay. Which means I am failing miserably or doing really well. So I'll take the latter. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to roll through some different categories. Remember, this is an overview. This is a general approach to that type of symptoms, right? It's not an algorithm. It's not a cookie cutter. It's not a fix-all, right? So just be generous with that. The first one we're going to talk about is when somebody's depressed. Now, when somebody is depressed, and people have different needs when they're depressed. You don't know if you're supposed to move toward. Our assumption is we're supposed to move towards, right? I had a friend of mine very recently who lost her brother and sister within the same 24 hours, one to a failed kidney transplant, the other to cancer. And I was just like, and she called me and I was like I didn't even know what to say, y'all. But I knew that I needed to be present. And so my first instinct was, well, let me drop and let me go. And I said, you need me to come? And she said, nope. The entire family's here. I'm overwhelmed. And I'm so glad that I asked because that would have been my assumed need, right? And so I said to her, when things calm down, reach out to me and let me know where you need me. That way she can tell me, oh, should I be coming, going, whatever, rather than me just jumping in there and making it messier than what it is. When somebody's depressed, you don't know if they want somebody to move towards them or to give them space, right? So you might want to ask, hey, you need me to come sit over next to you? You need me to come over? Or what do you need right now? You need some space. I can check back with you later, kind of thing. Patience and listening. The person that's depressed is probably going to be giving a gloomy outcome on things. I'm not laughing at it, but because gloomy outcomes are contagious. So sometimes, right, listening to somebody else's depression can be depressing, right? When I first started clinical work, I was terrible for depression because I would get depressed. And it was like, you listen to somebody, oh, the kids are sick and I might get kicked out and lose my job and my husband's acting up. And you listen to that, and you're like, yeah, I guess life does suck, doesn't it? Well, you're an agent of support and change. So you need to maintain a positive place of support for them. So reassuring them again, right? However, whatever words you use, hey, I understand wow, that's a lot, kind of thing. And reassure them that you're not leaving. Remember harm reduction? Meet them where they are and don't leave them behind. So I might not know what to say in that moment to honor somebody's state of mind, being depressed, but I will say, and I'm not leaving. Or I might say, and I've been there too. I get it, kind of, right? Okay. Depression, speak with a caring voice. For my lions and sharks in the room, you can't just be direct. That comes across as insensitive. And folks, I'm not saying you got to sugarcoat your language, but talk with a softer tone. Hey, I get it. That's a direct statement without sounding syrupy sweet, right? Okay. No humor, no sarcasm when somebody's down, and ask them, what do you need? Right? How can I help? Kind of thing. Okay, that's depression. Okay, good. Suicide. Well, I'm not going to get into suicide today, but I am going to give you a scenario for suicide that we can play with at the for schizophrenia, sorry. So now they have literally they're living in an altered state of reality, right? Schizophrenia literally means split mind. So and this is a tough one. How do you talk to somebody that's operating in a different reality? If you've ever done this with anybody that's had any kind of dementia or memory loss, or they see or hear things that aren't there, this is tough. Does the person have anybody that is familiar with their condition that can help? So I'm really inviting incredible messengers here. I'm talking in calm and simple sentences. If they have a request that's reasonable, even if it sounds out of my lane, then I try to provide that. I try to speak their language as much as possible. Even though the language may be made up, like I might try to say, yeah, we can get those woogers for you, whatever that is. I just made that term. Yeah, they might say, I need my workers. I need my workers. Okay, yeah, let's see if we can find those workers. Let's see if we can get somebody to get those workers. Okay. Keep yourself safe. I'm not saying this from a violent perspective. There is a myth, a misconception that schizophrenic folks are violent, and what they do is they have outbursts that are sometimes surprising and shocking, but they're usually not violent. So the statistics that support that are actually very, very low. But sometimes they do unexpected things. Right, so you gotta be flexible. You gotta be a roll with the flow, and then call for assistance. Right, whoever the local crisis staff, or if they're in house or whatever, get them to assist. Anxiety. So these are folks who are thinking something terrible is getting ready to happen, and it can manifest itself through phobias, through generalized anxiety, through social anxiety, OCD. All kinds of things that people will start to believe. And here's the thing. Don't challenge them. Don't tell them. That's the number one thing right here. Don't tell them that if they're like, look, I'm afraid of spiders and all the spiders are coming to get me now. Don't say, there are no spiders. Do you see any spiders around there? And spiders don't even, but they're not going to bite you. Don't do that. Get along with okay, hey, let's make sure, let's go to a different place or room where there are no spiders or something like that. Don't challenge their belief system, because the fear, the anxiety, very real to them, right? Most important, stay calm, because they're probably going to be irritated and agitated. Give them space, don't restrict them. They're probably going to want movement, right? Try to reduce any distractions or outside noise that might be contributing to that anxiety, because anxiety usually goes one direction, that's up, right, and out, because it has no boundaries, right? Offer them a safe way out. Hey, if I get behind the steering wheel and drive, would that help you in this moment? How about I take that for you, and let's walk over here and get to a safe space. If somebody's having a panic attack, I'm looking at them directly in their eyes. Look at me. Look at me. Breathe with me. Look at me. Look, no, look right here. Look, stay here. Stay with me. Okay, kind of thing. All right. I know I'm going fast, but and let's say somebody is drunk or high. I know that's a loose term because people can be drunk or high of many different things, right? But again, staying calm, being active listening, reassuring them, do not get into an argument or threaten them, right? As much as you can, let them have their way if it's not an unreasonable request. Because let me tell you something about people that are drunk and high, having been there myself and being an alcoholic for 3 years of my life, trust me, a person that is high or drunk is very motivated to get what they want, and they're willing to compromise your safety as well as theirs to get it. So don't try to challenge them or restrict them. Try to go along with them and move them to a space where you can address their needs or continue the conversation. If somebody is drunk or high, I am immediately looking for people around that understand their space. Friends, colleagues, case managers, anybody around that might understand why they're in that state. Give them a way out. So, hey, come on, man, walk over here with me. Let's talk about that some more. I get it, man. I get it. The world's unfair. So let's see if we can take care of that kind of. Okay. Any questions?
We do have a question
Yes.
from Jeremy. As far as psychosis, do you recommend going into the psychosis with folks who maybe talk to their voices or their visions?
Absolutely not. And the reason this is an excellent question. Okay, so look, I'm going to answer it two ways. First of all, folks, when you see somebody in distress, particularly when they're acting out of their mental health systems, trust me, you're not going to know their diagnosis unless you've been working with them already. You're not going to know where it's coming from. You're going to identify the symptoms as being anxious or drunk or alternate reality, but you're not going to. Nobody's that good, and I'm not psychic, so neither do I. But I can identify if they're agitated. Well, they might be on stimulants, right? It might be something like that, or maybe they're anxious. I don't know. But that cues me in to filter in the type of response that I want to give them. So it's an excellent question in terms of, do you speak to the voices? And my other response to that is, well, you can respond to what they're saying, but you can't hear the voices. So you're not going to know. How would you do that? That's why I said you try to talk to their language as much as possible, right? That's why I made up that term, woogers. Well, I don't know what a wooger is, but okay, if they're saying I need my woogers, then I'm going to say, hey, let's see if we can find those woogers, even though I don't know what that is, assuming that woogers aren't dangerous, right? But you don't know. So we're really in the zone of de-escalation, not diagnosis, not assessment, not treatment. How can I bring this person back down so that we can have a normal conversation, as normal as possible? It's an excellent question. But 9 times out of 10, you're not going to know fully what's going on with the person. It's a great question. Anybody else? And even if you're a clinician, as you all well know, sometimes the symptoms overlap. So somebody might be having a psychotic intoxication, right? So psychosis from intoxication, too much substance in their system. But we might say, oh, they must be schizophrenic, and they're actually separate diagnoses, overlapping symptoms, but different diagnosis. It's a good question. And let me thank you for asking that, whoever asked it. Let me get back to the goals of de-escalation, right? Rehumanizing, seeing everybody as human, they're in a moment. Diffusing, how do I shift this energy? Well, my shifting has to do with what they're asking for. Sometimes they just want to be heard. Sometimes they might need space. Sometimes they might need water. Sometimes they might need somebody to stay with them. Those are all things that I am ready to offer because I can. Sometimes they just want to be in conversation with somebody. Hey, man, I get you on the bullhorn. I can't really hear well, but I want to hear more of what you're talking about. Right? Come over here and talk. Tell me some more about what you're screaming. Folks, that's not an agreement. You might think, oh, well, then you're giving into their cause. No, I'm opening up a channel for them to not be loud, scare people, disrupt the environment. But and I'm genuine about hearing that, even if they're talking about something polar opposite to what I believe, because my space is an agreement. My space is, let me hear you, because we all want to be heard. And when I'm on my soapbox and I'm preaching, I want you to be listening too. And I'm offended if you're not. So just think about that, right? Find a space for alternate energy, a shift in that where maybe a different option can be achieved, right? And then potential conflict transformation. Like if this intervention works, then the next time if they have it, we already know what to do. Or maybe because we actually did respond to their need in this moment, it's less likely to come up again in the future. Okay.
You have a question that's related to that conflict transformation. What are some signs that a conflict is not being resolved effectively?
Further escalation. I hate to be like, but yeah, remember I told you I'm always assessing. So I might go in, let's say Brooke's upset and she's screaming, and I say, Brooke, I hear you. I got you. And she turns to me and she says, you, and come up. Okay, now my thing has not helped, right? Has not helped at all. So now I need a different approach. So let's say I do that, and that's the reaction I get. I might step back and say, okay, it's cool. I'm gonna stand over here. What were you saying? So now what I've done is I've given the person space. I've stepped back, but I've engaged again. Tell me what's going on, kind of thing. And then, if she comes down a notch, now I know I've created the right space. I might try something else. But it's a constant assessment. You never know, and there's always a risk. Now, what happens over time with practice of these skills is you get better at them, right? You get more seasoned. You know what the skills that you can offer that work. Notice how I said that. The skills that you as an individual can offer that work. The same gifts you have are not what somebody else can bring to the situation. That's exactly why I said if I'm dealing with somebody that's not responding to me, but I know Brooke has worked. I'm only picking on Brooke because she's the only person I can see. but I know Brooke has worked with this person or knows this person. I'll be like, Brooke, hey, Sharon's having a moment. Can you come and just talk to us together? And right, because Brooke knows Sharon knows Brooke. That's a potential de-escalator. Or I might be like, look, I'm going to step out because I don't want to agitate you any further. Brooke, why don't you take over? Or I might say, let's say Brooke's not around. Hey, would you like to walk down to the conference room where I can really hear what you're saying, give you your full attention, kind of thing? Anything that tries to reach the person. But to your question, always checking to make sure. And look, folks, there's no guaranteed outcome in this. I mean, most of the time when I intervene, and can't give it a percentage, but I'm 80, 90% of the time, yeah, it works, but there are times that it doesn't. And check this out. There are times I choose not to. It is not the space and time for me to either I'm not right or what I'm going to do is just going to escalate, right? Let's let somebody else handle it. That's smart. And as if you're in support work, you should know what your gifts are, providing those generously, but also know when to not. Stay in your lane. If there's somebody else better or more equipped, allow them to step in. Okay, that's it. Anybody else?
Just one more question. If the person who's the escalator is in an environment where multiple people are around and multiple people are triggered or affected at once, how can you hold space for multiple people at the same time?
Ooh, yeah, this is a great question. All right, and I'm going to give you a real BS answer, okay? You do what you can with what you have wherever you are. If you are a sole person that is dealing with a crowd of escalated people, you better know your limits and you better know the kickback. It might be brutal. Look, this is not flying in, swooping in with your cape with the S on it to save everybody. It is not that. I work with what I can. And that might be the agitator, the escalator. That might be the person who's being targeted. That might be a bystander, somebody that's just on the outside. I'll give you a great example. I'll be real quick with this. Last year, I went to a club to get a drink. There was a fight that was getting ready to happen in the parking lot as I pulled up. When I got out of my car, I walked towards it. My initial thing would have probably tried to get in between them or say something for them not to fight. But by the time I got up there, they were already into it. One guy was on the ground getting bloodied. My next thought was, let's get people out of the path of danger. Let's start escorting folks away. But by that time, they had already picked up the bloodied guy and walked him inside the club into the bathroom. So then I moved into the lobby. I followed them into the lobby, and I just turned around and stood there in case the folks that beat them down were coming in for round two. If they had come in, I might have said something like, it's cool, he's down. There's no more damage you can do. It's done. Like, you don't need to come in here, kind of thing. They didn't come in, so I didn't have to say that. But notice, like, I'm constantly assessing, and there's different options that I can use, right? So when you're talking about multiple people getting agitated, I might step away from that. Like, this is out of my hands. We need to call security. It might be, let's get people out of the path of danger, right? I mean, you do what you can, and sometimes you can't. Sometimes it's beyond you. But yeah, I'm sorry if that wasn't specific enough. But yeah, that's a tough one. So now, if you have a team of people, like if you went as a group, then there's things that different people from your group can do to intervene with multiple agitation. Absolutely. That's how I got into this work. So great question. Thank you. Okay, Brooke, anything else?
Not at this moment.
I'm going to give you a scenario. Y'all ready? Okay, here we go. And look, please be generous in your offerings. The questions that I'm asking for these scenarios is, what's one thing that you would do? So don't give me the whole litany, right? Just because there's 113 people in the room. So just give me one thing that you would do, and think of maximizing the outcome, right? The positive outcome while minimizing negative. Just think in those terms, because you might say, well, somebody come at me, I'm gonna smack them in the face. Yeah, that's definitely a response, and it's definitely a response that has an outcome, probably not the one that you want, not for the person or you. So yeah, we're trying to maximize positive outcomes. Here we go. And this is just artificial situation. You are a case manager for a harm reduction program. You are sitting in your office and one of your participants, Cruella, bursts into your office without an appointment. Cruella, in a very loud and angry voice, complains about how she has problems every time she tries to contact you. You start to ask her questions, but she cuts you off and tells you she's uninterested in anything you have to say. She could teach you a thing or two. Harm reduction, calls you an idiot. Now, folks, I put idiot in there to be nice. I want you to pick the word that will offend you senselessly. I mean that. Pick whatever word that they could say. You know, we always say this word and that word, whatever that word is, because I don't want this easy for you. I want the person to come after you in a way that it could be personal, right? And you still have to respond to it. Now, look at this last line. It says, assume that her complaint is valid. So she is having difficulty reaching you. That's true. But how she showed up, of course, is inappropriate. So what is one thing that you might do to try to intervene or de-escalate this situation? Anything at all. And I'm taking any and all comers. Please don't let me be the only one that's responding to this. This is just our warm-up, folks. This is just our warm-up. Okay. Should I be monitoring the chat too? Is that how we do this? I'm not sure. Okay.
I can read some of them, or you can scan.
Yeah, let me see here. What are their participants? Okay, that was okay. That was North American quote. Thank you. Okay, I'm reading the question now. Okay. Okay. Oh, good. Okay, here we go. Robin says, apologize first. Yes. Guys, you're not apologizing for her inappropriate behavior. You're yeah, I'm so sorry that you've had difficulty reaching me. Remember, we said that was legitimate. So maybe she is really frustrated. Nothing wrong with saying I'm sorry about that, right? Monica, I would have to see if another team member. I love Monica's honesty, right? She's like, look, I can't deal with Cruella, but good, Monica. Like, this might be a little over my head. This is too much for me because I might have the wrong reaction. Good, Monica. I'm scrolling down. Brandon said, terribly sorry. We don't have, what can I do to better serve? Good, Brandon. Now, because you've not only apologized, but you opened up the space for, how can I do this better? Listen, good, Stephanie. Listen, find out what's the root of the problem is. If you react out of your stuff, you might not hear the fact that she's saying, I can't reach you. Offer understanding of how she is feeling. That came from uh, Brittany. Good. So Brittany's empathizing. Very good. Did I say that right? Oh, actually, yeah, Brittany. Um, Ashley says, talk in soothing tone and ask her to take a breath. We can figure out, well, okay. All right. So, talk in a soothing tone, ask her, how can we, let's try to do better with this, right? And that's not putting it on her. It's including yourself in it. Let's see. I'm not going to get everybody's. Validate their feelings. Good. Stay calm, active, listening, patient. Validate. You guys are good. Laura says, explain that you understand their anger. Good. All of that is empathy and validation. Good, Andrea. Validate. Mary says, ask her what she can do, right, to help. How about talking to Coach Sue? Sahara, I hope I said your name right, sis. I don't know who Coach Sue is, but I assume that's somebody outside or beyond you that can really help with this situation. Ryan says, reassure. Good, Ryan, reassure. Say, hey, we're going to resolve this. And I'm sorry you haven't been able to reach me, but we're going to do something. We're going to make sure you're taken care of today. Okay. Andrew says, focus on the connection. Oh, Andrew getting deep on me. Focus on the connection rather than go on, Andrew. Maybe you should be facilitating this session. I'll let you hear Andrew said, focus on the connection and not the correction. Go on, Andrew. Okay, Tanner says, I hear you. What are some ways? Good. Allow the client to, enroll them, Tanner. That's right. Enroll them in their own, help me help you kind of thing, right? Apologize. She has difficulty. Ask her, this is Michael, what she had been trying to reach me about. Oh, okay. Yeah. So apologize and say, hey, I'm here now. Let me help you in any way I can. Or let's set up a time where I can hear all your concerns, whatever. Amanda says, woo, Corella, I hear that you are pissed. You have my attention. This is, Amanda's response is interesting. Like, this is kind of playing the role, right? Like, okay, but you're agreeing with her. Like, hey, I get it. You're upset about something. So now you got my attention. Let me help. I love it, Amanda. Good. All right, I can't do all these. Sympathize. Good. That's Brianna. I'm going backwards now. Repeat back to her. Good. Reflect, Caitlin. Good. Let her know that you're hearing what she's saying. Okay. And see, I see a Dr. Corbin in there, but oh yeah. I'll definitely share my email, Erica. Absolutely. Okay, good. All right. All excellent responses. You see, there's multiple ways that you could address this. I heard validating and reassuring and asking how you can help with creating the space. And oh man, that was wonderful. So you guys are already expert. You're already expert. Okay. Let's do a situation or scenario out of mental health symptoms, right? So let's do one out of anxiety. How about that? Let's try one for a person that we've identified this anxious. Remember, we don't know necessarily specifically what their disorder is, but we can tell they're anxious. We know they're anxious because they are uncertain with the world, because they are having a panic attack, because they keep on mentioning this specific phobia that they're having. They're grasping their chest and saying it's hard to breathe, okay? These are signs of anxiety. Here we go. All right. So you are standing in a long line at the CVS, and the woman in front of you starts rocking back and forth, mumbling to herself and breathing heavily. She yells out, stay away from me. I don't want to get COVID. She leans over, grabs her chest like she's having a heart attack, and you believe this is a panic attack. So this is actually out in public, but you could make this in the office. It doesn't matter. So give me some ideas of how you might respond to this. This one's tricky because now she's saying, stay away from me because I don't want to get COVID. So she's still in that frame of mind. So first of all, think about what you can do. What's the space? So right now, Laura says back away and make sure. Absolutely, Laura. First rule of thumb, back away and give her the space that she needs. Good, Kelly. Honor the request. Good, Kristen. Good, Brandon. Right. Ask her, I think Brandon said, remind her to breathe. Absolutely. Okay. I noticed that you're grabbing your chest. Just, can you take some deep breaths with me? I'm going to stay over here. I'm going to stay over here. Breathe with me. Excuse me. Andrea says, talk calmly to her. You staying calm is probably the most important thing in this scenario, right? Don't bring more drama. Don't bring more animation. Don't bring more worry to the situation. Okay, I'm going to stay over here. Just, ma'am. Yeah, okay, I see you're clutching your chest. Can you just take some deep breaths? So I just want to make sure you're okay. I'm not coming here. Not coming here. Look at me. Okay, look at me. Just take some deep breaths. See that? See how I'm breathing? See how I'm breathing? Good. Oh gosh, that's good. Keep breathing. Keep breathing. We're going to get somebody over to help you. Keep breathing. Keep breathing. Okay, good. I'm just making that up. See if good, Carissa. See if the CVS has a mask, right? Remember, she's worried. I don't know if COVID is the anxiety, but she's worried about somebody getting too close to her. Yeah, you put on a mask. Put up, give her a mask to put on, right? So you're addressing whatever that need is, even if it's irrational. You're helping her to come to a safe place. Good. Um, validate her feelings, offer breathing techniques. Good. Give her some space. Good. Reassure her she's going to be okay. Box breathing. Good. You might have to, at a later point in time, explain. I don't have time to do it now, but there are different breathing techniques to help somebody center themselves and come back down. There's imagery that you can use, all kinds of different things you can use. But breathing is the most basic and easiest to do, especially long, deep breaths, because it is hard to be agitated taking in long, deep breaths because it's our basic function, normalcy of life, breathing, that we often take for granted. In fact, most of us breathe too fast and aren't even aware of it. So if we are truly breathing fully and correctly. Okay. Okay, good. I like that. I'm going to keep moving. Let me see what time it is. Okay, good. Because I want a few minutes at the end just for reflection and or takeaways. Okay. Why don't we try schizophrenia? Let's try that. Let's see what we got for that. Okay. So Nigel is 20 at the grocery store. He starts talking to people who are not there. And folks, if you all need this to be office related because that's where you're going to see it, that's fine. I do both for in-house and out, right? I do it for people that just might be on the street, even, right? So Nigel's 20 at the grocery store, starts talking to people who are not there. He is also sure there is someone yelling at him and calling his name loudly in his ear. He starts to get irritable and throwing his arms around to keep the people away. This is a good one. And this is very in sync with the question that whoever asked before that was like, well, what about their voices? What they're hearing things. How do you respond to that? This is a great one. Okay, I got something in the queue. Reassure her. Ryan says reassure that her concerns are valid. And Ryan has a good point. We don't know if Nigel's a male or female. No, we do, says he. So Nigel's a male. So reassure them that her concerns are valid. So Nigel, my question would be, how would you do that, right? Like, how do you validate what you cannot see that's there? I think you're exactly right. Definitely want to. So I would not. So to Nigel's point, I mean to Nigel's point, to Ryan's point, I would not say no. You don't. There's nobody there. Nobody is yelling in your ear right now. I would never say that, right? So you want to validate this, and remember they're in an alternate reality. So let me see what y'all got. Nigel, my first thought would be to look for the family of the person. Good, Brandon, right. Is anybody around, right, that might know something about this individual? That may or may not be the case. Amanda says, what's happening for you right now? Okay, good, Amanda. That's empathizing with the situation and then asking how I can help. And Nigel may or may not be in a position to tell you that, but that's a great first step. Calmly, good, James. I would calmly ask Nigel what's going on, right? And then if let's say he's like, oh my gosh, this person, you see him, he's yelling in my ear. My thing wouldn't be like, no, he's not, or he's not there. Rather, hey, can we get you, let's get you away from here so he's not yelling in your ear anymore. Kind of thing. Very good. Let's see. Oh, good. Okay, good, Kristen. Do you think you might want to go for a walk, right? Get out of here a minute, get some fresh air. walk with me. Maybe we can get away from this guy kind of thing. You can just talk to me. I love it. Thank you. I'm sorry. And again, I might miss a few of these. I know I'm getting more than I can read. Kathy says, talk calmly, make eye contact. Good, Kathy. I would definitely try to make eye contact with a person that I assume is under schizophrenic symptoms, mainly so that they see that I'm engaged, not and that I believe them. That's really good, Kathy. Laura says maybe ask if they know who is yelling at them and why they are yelling to validate their feelings. Now, Laura, what you're saying is let's try to get inside their head and see the world from their perspective. I totally agree with you. If it's from a diagnostic perspective, like, well, I need to understand what's going on, nix that. But what I'm reading, Laura, is that you want to understand what they're going through, why they're, and what these voices are kind of doing for them. I really appreciate that. And if you're lucky, because remember, schizophrenics will move in and out of altered and reality. So altered reality and real reality. In fact, that's one of the things that they've merged both realities, right? They've kind of overlapped both realities and are operating both in them. So that's a very good statement. Yeah, find a place to get away. Good, Miranda. And then Jeremy says maybe even pressure bystanders that we are there to help and may employ someone to get water or help. Yeah. Yeah, this is a situation, if it continues to get out of hand, that I and other clinicians in the room will tell you, you want to get support. You want to get help. You don't want to be the sole, a savior in the place, right? It's not about that. Let's get as many people as we can, as long as the other people aren't agitators. Got to think about that with the schizophrenic, because we want to give them space, right? But we also want to move them away out of the path of danger. Michael says, eye contact, definitely. Yep, so they're engaged. Because what you want to do is, even in that brief moment, try to build some trust with them. Good. Talking to them calmly, right? Hey, I get it. Like, I don't like when my brother yells in my ear. So let's get you to a space where that might not happen. Very, very good. Okay. I'm going to give you one more, and then we'll try to land this plane. Carissa says, ask if there's someone you can call. Very good. This is one where you want your crisis numbers on standby, just in case you got to call somebody for intervention. Okay. Okay, I'll give you one more. Not going to tell you the context. Well, no, I'm going to tell you the context. It's suicide. How about that? And we didn't talk about suicide. I know. You see my horns, my tail flapping. Okay, good. Let's see what you would do. And remember, and I say this, and I talked to Brooke and Jeremy about this. This isn't to throw something in your face that you may not be prepared for. It's rather that you never know that what you're going to get, and understand suicide response is its own training that we don't have time for in here. But I know you all already know this stuff. Sometimes you don't know that you know, but you can rely on each other to learn. So there we go. So Susie's mother died a year ago, but Susie just can't seem to move on. Susie is still having a hard time sleeping at night and concentrating in school. Last week, I even caught Susie crying in the school washroom. Some people have seen her take some pills. Now, first of all, this is a school scenario, but you all know that adolescents are at one of the greatest risks, age-wise, population for suicide. Let's assume you're not going to know all this wonderful information, right? But you might. If you happen to know Susie, you probably know that her mother died a year ago. Well, you just notice this person. She's weeping in the washroom, and people have said, I think I saw her take something. How are you going to respond to this? Now, suicide, again, can be a different and very sensitive scenario. I did not give you information on it, so I want you to be generous with your input, but understand sometimes we can miss things. So I'm not saying this is easy by any means, but I got you. I'm here to support you. What are some things you might do? You walk into the bathroom, any bathroom, forget school. You walk into the bathroom, you see somebody slouched in the corner. It looks like they might be intoxicated or have taken something, and they are weeping, they are crying their eyes out. What are you going to say? What are you going to do, if anything? Because you know what? I'm going to be painful. Can I be fully transparent right now? My first thought might be, let me leave this one alone. This is none of my business. That might be my first thought. Like, ooh, let me let me get out of here, right? Kind of thing, right? And of course, if I'm a man, I probably wouldn't be in a woman's restroom, but let's just, right, we're in the bathroom, there's somebody that's slouched over. I will tell you now, my first thought might be, this is none of my business, or let me get out of here. That could be my first thought. My second thought is, let me say something. Let me check in. Let me check in, at least ask. And if they're like, get the hell away from me, I'll respect that. But I'm gonna ask something like, you okay? Hey, ma'am, bro, you okay? Like, I'm definitely gonna check in. All right, let's see what we got in the chat. Okay, what we got here? Kristen says 911. Okay. Now look, and Kristen, I assume you're talking about the suicide scenario. We don't know that they're suicidal. Everything that we have in the scenario, remember, you're not going to walk in the washroom and they're going to say, my mother just died and I just took some pills and I'm having difficulty. You're not going to have any of that information. You're going to see a person that's in distress and in tears. So 911, it definitely has its place. I'm not crapping on law enforcement. What I do say, though, is that I usually try to use them as a last resort, because sometimes the police can bring more attention to a situation, and often do. But is there a time to call the police? Absolutely. Police wouldn't be my first one, Kristen, maybe a mobile crisis hotline. But if this is beyond you, absolutely call somebody. Hell, call the school principal, call somebody. Okay, so you're not wrong there, Kristen. Brittany, I would offer to sit down beside the person. Good, Brittany. Now, this is where, for me, I'm never sure if somebody wants the closeness or they want the distance. So I might say to them, is it okay if I come sit down next to you? Is that all right? Is it okay that I stay here or stand here and talk to you? And I'm probably not going to stand over them if they're slouched down. I'm probably going to come down or where they are, either kneeling or not kneeling, squatting, right, or sitting. But getting right up next to them, that would depend on if I would ask first. Oh, look at you guys! You guys are loading up I can't keep up. Make sure she knows she's not alone. Good, Joshua, that you're there to help. Good, Joshua. Carissa, ask her if it's okay. Good. Bobby Joe, I think I would. What'd she say? Sorry, I was trying to move and lost the place. I'm sorry. Oh, there we go. Bobby Joe says, I think I would call for help and calmly talk. Good, Bobby Joe. So Bobby Joe saying, this might be out of my lane, right? So let me call somebody that knows what they're doing, and I'll stay with her until somebody gets there. Outstanding, Bobby Joe. Hey, Susie, this is Amanda. I know that you have a really hard time, but it would make sense to me. Just talk for a minute. Good, Amanda. Give her the space. Just venting, knowing somebody will listen and care is half the battle sometimes. Let her know you even noticed her. And good, Kelly, because the reality of Kelly's response here, we don't know what's going on with Susie. We could put ourselves in that position. Oh, I know Susie, but you don't know what's going on with Susie. Just let her know, hey, I noticed you seem really upset. Want to know if there's anything I can do to help, right? And they'll tell you. Again, lost my place again. I'm so sorry. My scroller doesn't work really well here. Comfort. Kayla says comfort. I asked you wants to talk about. Good, Kayla. Caitlin says being in school, I would let a counselor teach me. Good. That I witnessed Susie taking the pills. Definitely, if that was witnessed, that needs to be addressed, right? She could OD. She could start getting sick or nauseous, right? So we want to try and get validation of that as much as possible. Ask her if she feels like talking. Now, Caitlin must have had some suicidal training, because Caitlin says, ask her if she has any thoughts of harming herself. That's a direct question we ask people when they look like, when we think they're suicidal. You don't sugarcoat it or talk around it. Are you thinking about hurting yourself? That's a direct question so that you know what you're working with. So you're right about that. Good, Caitlin. Let's see what else we got. Ask her questions. Good. Is there anything you need help with? Ask if they're okay. I'm sorry. Contact a professional. Oh, good. Jeremy says they asked if they have a plan. Yeah, that's one of the things in suicidal ideation that makes it more imminent, right? They actually have a gun. They actually bought the rope. They actually know which train track they're going to cross, that kind of thing. So find out if there's a plan. I apologize. I'm just trying to get all of these and scrolled past half of them. Good. Andrew says asking permission for most things is one of the, yes. Thank you, Andrew. Just let's sit with this for a moment, folks. This is that enrolling the client in their own empowerment, right? Are you okay? Is it okay if I sit here and talk to you? Is it okay if I, get some help for you? Whatever, like, checking in with them in some way that doesn't take away all of their options. Now, for some of you might be saying, well, what if this is their only option and they're going to kill themselves? Well, yes, that's a possibility. But right now, what you're witnessing is somebody that is in tears on the floor crying to death. You don't know all those other things yet. Check in with the person. And that's simple for me. Ma'am, are you okay? Look, I'm just concerned. Give you space. I just want to, is it okay? I talk to you? I was going to talk to you until we can get somebody else here to help you. Okay. Well, okay, I sit down with you. Yeah, I'm gonna sit right here, kind of thing. Okay. So good. Thank you for that insight. Anything else I probably missed? Okay, James says I would talk to Susie and say that I noticed she does not seem like herself lately. Ask if there's anything I could do to help her. That's really a strong statement, James, of empowering the client. Don't assume. Now, we know it's suicide because I gave you suicide and I gave you the scenario, but you're not going to know that walking into the restroom. And James' response is really, really sensitive and present. So, hey, I noticed that you haven't been yourself lately. I don't know what's going on, but anything you want to talk about, I'm here. I'm going to stay, kind of thing. Good, James. And for all the rest of you that said something similar, I'm trying to see if I see something else. Okay. And again, my apologies if I didn't read your specific comment. We're about at 11:18, and I want to come out of this now and land this plane. I don't know if there's any other. Okay, so I'm not asking you to write down these resources. Just know that they are out there. They are local and they are national. And if you are, especially if you're doing direct support work, you should have, and even indirect, you should have this list available to you at all times. Carry it in your wallet, have it in your office put it on your refrigerator, whatever places that can offer assistance. Okay. I'm going to come out of this. Here's a quote that I skipped in the beginning, right? So we said, look at their humanity first, not their symptoms. Recognition, not in terms of awards or publicity, but in the sense of simply being seen, is a basic human need. People need to be recognized, known, and believed. All right? Do what you can wherever you are with what you have. Sometimes that's one person. Sometimes that might be multiple people. Sometimes that means call in your supervisor, call in your colleague, Brooke, whatever. Like, every situation is different. Okay, I'm going to stop talking there. I'm going to thank you for the space that you've allowed me to speak into, reassure you that this conversation can continue beyond this time and space. Both Brooke and Jeremy have my contact info. And if you have any questions or comments, we can continue. Is there anybody that would like to offer, motivational interviewing, Brielle? That's my specialization. That's like, you want to hear me preach. It's motivational interviewing. So thank you for that, Brielle. Appreciate that. I want to just leave a space for a couple of you that might have a takeaway or a comment or a final, anything that they might want to say before we shut this down. Thank you, Kelly.
We did have a question from Kevin earlier, and he's our little trauma-informed.
Oh, good.
He's got that trauma-informed hat on, and he said, it seems like a lot of these de-escalation techniques are part of a continuum of care that should occur when organizations embrace trauma-informed approaches. Could you speak a little on this?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Trauma-informed, unfortunately, is not standardized. So what happens is we walk into places that claim to be trauma informed, and there are actually different levels. There's trauma aware, trauma sensitive, trauma informed, right? There's different levels of trauma awareness. But here's the thing. We in the support field are supporting others in visiting and resolving or reconciling or reaching closure on their trauma. But most of us aren't doing that same work ourselves. Like we got to be willing. I'm not saying you need to have your slate clean. I'm saying you got to be willing to go through that trauma informed process if you want to be an effective support person for somebody else that's there, right? Like that that's what I think is the most missing piece of supporting folks. And we're real. Look, if I had a workshop today after this one, I said everybody come to that workshop and let's talk about our trauma. That room would be empty. If I said, hey, let's have a session and let's talk about how we support others in their trauma, the room would be full. My point there is, first of all, everybody's trauma is different. Being sensitive to trauma doesn't mean you had to experience necessarily the same trauma, but that you understand and can provide a space of grace and empathy for it, right? Now, does it help? Absolutely. That's why peer recovery is so powerful, right? But do you have to experience? No. And then also not having expectations for the person that we're supporting that we're not willing to go through ourselves. I don't even know if that's answering your question, but it's an excellent one, because let's assume, and it is an assumption, but that the work that we do, that the people that we are serving often are coming in with multiple traumas, multiple negative experiences, multiple events that have impacted their life. Not just one. Like ours might be financial, or it might be health, or it might be relationship, whatever, or the kids. But you can assume all of that, and some of it, at least is going on. So they're not just dealing with you; they're dealing with other expectations and demands to move towards stability, and it can be overwhelming for them. So you got to be able to accommodate that. I don't know if I answered that question, but whoever asked it would, I would love to continue in conversation with you beyond this space.
Great. We have one more question about paranoia. And if someone is in a state where they think everyone is out to get them or things are being bugged by law enforcement, how would you approach that situation?
Well, again, I wouldn't reject that. My thing at that point would be who, including me, right, me or somebody else, will be the best receive. In other words, who can they trust? Is there anybody in their world that they can trust, that we can get in contact with to help the intervention, even by phone? Like, because hey, I might be trying to intervene. I don't know who I am, right? And I got the best intentions. So I might just be another part or a feeder for their. So my first thing is, let's bring them back down. Is there anybody that they do trust, or can I move them to a different space where it's just me and them and they feel safer? That's a short answer, but yeah, best you can do. Remember, there will be situations there's very little you can do. And look, I know this is an extreme example, but I don't know if you've ever seen somebody doped up on CP, or in some places called angel dust, right? Encyclopedia. Look, love boat, whatever. There's no numerous terms for it, right? And these might be old school terms. I might have dated myself, but boy, I'm gonna tell you, I've been around somebody tripping, and there was nothing that I could do. Absolutely nothing I could do until they came down off their high. They were so energized and standing in one spot, dancing and screaming. There was nothing you could do but wait for that to come back down to intervene. And it's very, I mean, other than calling somebody at the paddy wagon, right? Like nothing else you could do. So the point I'm trying to make, there will be situations where you feel helpless and are helpless. My thing isn't, again, oh, well, let me save the world. My thing is, hey, is there something that I can do with with the gifts that I have in this moment? And most of the time that's a yes. Sometimes that's a no. I roll with it. And over time have learned how to discern that, because I used to think I could help everybody else. So get that out your head. And if you got that in your head, I'm going to tell you right now, you're wrong. Because you have that kind of understanding and mastery of human nature and complexity, I need to sit in your seminar. We in the wrong place, right? Because I do this for a living, and I got in it, and there's still stuff that mystifies. I'm like, whoa, where did that come from? How did they arrive there? Why did they that? You got to be real with yourself. You are not helping if you are stepping into a situation that you think you are helping because you're good intention, but you could be causing more damage. Your first thing should be the Hippocratic Oath, even though we're not medical doctors, which is what? Do no harm. Okay. You can, let me just say before the folks that take off, your comments were outstanding. All right, you made it easy for me. It was all excellent. Thank you so much. I want before you go, I want to invite Brooke and maybe Jeremy, if he would like to, any landings, any final comments, any administrative things, anything, and I'll just open up the floor to them and say thank you all for being here today, and hopefully I'll see you again.
Thank you so much, Sal. That was phenomenal. That was great. And to help you land the plane, this is where it's landed for me, is that really the key to de-escalation is knowing yourself. The self-check, the self-awareness, knowing your limits, knowing your skill set. You really got to be in tune with where you're at and what you're capable of before you can help anybody else. That was the big takeaway for me. And also the continuous scanning, continuous assessing. There's multiple entry points to de-escalation. There's not a one size fits all approach to all of this.
Brooke, I might have you facilitate the next session.
I will say one other thing is that during this, my whole Zoom crashed. It closed and opened 3 times. And so I was experiencing anxiety. And the first time it happened was when the responses were coming through for the anxious scenario. And it was like everybody was telling me to breathe. And I was like, okay.
Is that amazing? So you can't plan. You can't.
Everybody helped me. I was like, right, okay, yep. So everyone's input was so helpful for me personally.
Not even knowing it.
Yes, and people have asked for your contact information. People have asked for information on the slides. We'll be sharing that. And the link for the continuing education credit for the survey, it's in the chat. So anybody looking for that CE certificate, fill out the survey, please. That's the last bit. Yeah, thanks everybody for joining the Kentucky Harm Reduction and Recovery Community of Practice webinar series. Complete the survey. Man, Sal, that was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. It was my honor, and I learned just listening to or reading folks' comments. I didn't know Jeremy, and I don't know who Aaron is. If either of them had something to say about it.
I don't know how Aaron got up on the screen here. Hey, Aaron, he's just sitting in the other room. I don't see anything else from Jeremy.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all for this time and space with me, and hopefully we'll see each other again soon.